check, check. Quick sound check. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? This is normally where I'd say, "What's up, Coach Paul?" But Coach Paul's out today. How is everybody doing in the chat? Let's get a confirmation. Kim says it sounds good. Awesome stuff. All right. Welcome everyone to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I am Coach Jay. Been a Topstep performance coach since, actually, no, that's not how this intro goes. Throwing off a little bit. Welcome to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, the goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. This is your first time here. I'm Coach Jay. I've been a Topstep performance coach since June of 2023. Been trading for the past 13 years and in the futures markets for the past 6. And you're all our chat, our viewers. Thank you for joining us today. Let us know how your week ended up. If you're up on the week, down on the week, anything you learned from this week. Did I lose weight? I didn't lose weight. I think it's the camera. I did get a haircut. Maybe that was it. Cut a little bit off the sides. But welcome to At the Buzzer. We'll get right into the markets. The old new one is up on the week. Adrian Soto up on the week, learned a lot. I'm up on the week as well. Like I said yesterday, I had a pretty bad day in my personal accounts, just not trading well at all. I was able to recover it today, getting on part of this trend. And we'll talk about that as well. Linus Rain, rough day. Power Hour was a dud. It definitely was. I got to be honest, that last hour and a half was not the price action I was expecting. I was looking for a short covering move potentially, and it just never happened. So whoever got short in this move, if they did, like those positions and maybe is holding over the weekend for one of those Sunday gap downs maybe. First week back after taking a couple weeks off, up in 2 combines from Kim. Courtney down on the week, frustrating week. Yeah, frustrating week for sure. We'll talk about it a little bit, especially if you were a trend trader and looking for trends. It made us wait. It made us wait. And then, are you prepared for it when it eventually does happen? Let's talk about the news real quick. We know today was an OPEX day, options expiration, which might be why we saw some of the move. But as far as planned news goes, we had the U.S. S&P Services PMI and manufacturing PMI numbers come out, as well as the University of Michigan sentiment final, which came in lower than expected. That's the second time that number's come in lower than expected and has led to a pretty negative day in the markets. So maybe that University of Michigan sentiment number is a lot more important than we originally expected. Let's see here. I'm having a difficult time getting my head around these plummets. We'll talk about it, right? We talked about it a little bit, kind of prepping for the week, really through all of the segments through this week. Looking at this sell-off today, I'm remembering slow markets with Dakota on Wednesday where we were both looking for shorts. But the one thing we talk about with day trading is timing and location is important, right? And I think I kept trying to preempt this short and it wasn't working out. And finally today was the day it did. And I took probably 15% of the move, which is okay, right? Which is okay. It was a big trend. I had expectations for it going that low, but you have to execute it in real time. And Monica, you asked, am I better at slow markets or fast markets? For me, fast markets for sure. I'm a volume momentum trader. If I can identify flow of the market and there's follow through in it, those are my best trades. And I want to try to hold on as long as possible. Today, I'll talk about the trade that I took. Maybe I can show the executions that I took in my account, but was just able to get on part of the trend. The market was moving in my favor, and I'm not going to step in the way. And today gave us a pretty good example of that. But let's get into the quote board. There are 35 different markets that we can trade with Topstep accounts and not just the equities. Today, to the downside, we had crude oil down 3.13%, micro Bitcoin futures down 3.78%, and micro Ethereum futures down 4.56% for our biggest percentage mover to the downside. To the upside, we had the 30-year bonds up 0.87%, ultra bonds up 1.09%, And natural gas, our biggest percentage mover to the upside at 2.96%. We already talked about crude down 3.1%, gold pretty much unchanged, down 0.21%. We have the S&Ps down 1.68% and the Nasdaq down 2.06% for our biggest percentage mover to the downside. And what's up, Tom? What's up, everyone joining? Thank you all for joining me on a Friday, either afternoon, evening, or maybe even morning, depending on where you are in the world. I got a Nasdaq chart up here. So let's take a look at what happened. Let's go out to a daily since it is the end of the week. And a couple of things that we've been talking about. One thing I mentioned during slow markets, we talked about it yesterday as well. Where's my volume indicator? Where is it? I feel lost without it. Like Robin Thicke. Here is, I'm going to put a couple of things on the chart that we can talk about. Here is the monthly VWAP. I'm going to make that green. And we've talked about a couple of things and, putting that whole puzzle together. A couple of things we had here, right? So we have this December 18th candle. That was a pretty big sell-off. I'm pretty sure that was FOMC day, right? So we've been talking about how the market responds to this candle. We've seen the 3 daily dojis that we have here that's rejected. And then yesterday, we started to kind of break out of that range of these 3 candles, right? We didn't close below it, but it's starting to crack a little. We talked about yesterday the potential of a monthly VWAP test, right? Where we've been extended from it. We can see the volume on the daily is below the average over the past couple of days. And really just the market not trading, not seeing any convincing buying. Just kind of going over the week, any of the bigger orders that we saw either in the S&P or in the Nasdaq this week were on the offer, right? So passive sellers, right? Some of those, I think we saw a 900 lot get traded in the Nasdaq this week. We saw a couple 700 lots, 500s. Those are pretty big orders for the Nasdaq. And from what I can remember, most of them were on the sell side, right? Now, does that mean that we're going to sell off this way? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know the intentions of that market participant. Maybe they're selling to open a position. Maybe they're selling to close. But either way, if you're selling, and the way I'm reading it is, if you're selling, you think that there's no more room to the upside potentially, right? Now, someone could have been selling to open a position, getting short up there and made money on it. But even if they were long, right, I'm getting out of that long because I don't think there's any more room to the upside. And it's not a coincidence that it happened at the high of this FOMC candle, which again, we've been trading in this range the entire time. We were extended from that VWAP. And, I think I talked about it a little earlier, just the more extended we get from it on lower volume, just the higher probability of a retest of it. The funny thing about day trading, you don't know when that day is going to be. So we need to trade it like a day trade, right? So I'm going to go to last night's open. Last night's open in the equities. Here's the NASDAQ. Pretty quiet overnight session. Pretty quiet overnight session here. Really not much to talk about at all, so we're just going to skip it, right? There isn't really anything that happened. And, we kind of waited until the volume came in for New York. So a little spike of volume here at around 7 a.m. Eastern time, which I'm not sure why that is. I know in the Dow, I've been seeing something in the Dow where every once in a while there's a spike of volume at 7 a.m. Eastern time. It doesn't happen in most of the equities, but it's consistent in the Dow. But we popped up kind of to the high of yesterday's sell-off that we had, right? We know there were some big sellers coming in here. Savage says we had those big orders, 906 orders popping up at Wednesday night, 22,240. 22,240. Is it a coincidence that that's the high of the day today? I don't think so. Not a coincidence, right? Whoever that seller was, apparently is still in the market, right? And maybe defending that position. And that's why for me, it's important to look at those orders. There were actually some comments, and I think his Royal is here as well in the chat. For paying attention to those orders, it's not necessary, right? You don't necessarily need to pay attention to what's happening on the depth of market, but filled orders tell a story, right? And If it's an order that, and I get some people don't like to look at the DOM because of the spoofing of orders and things like that, where they could put them out there and then they don't get filled. Filled orders and orders that disappear get pulled tell two different stories. If an order is filled, that means that there's a market participant that's conducting business at that price. Now, they could be selling to open or selling to close. We don't know, but I'm just always going to go with the assumption that they are selling to they're trading that much size to open a position. I could be wrong, but if I go with that assumption, then I read the market as it gets back there. And Savage, if we saw those orders at 240, that's the high of the day. So to me, it's always important to kind of mark those out. Let's go down to a shorter time frame, and there's really not much to talk about here. Where we got on we established the opening range. We VWAP was pretty heavy. What I really like about this, and what might give me a little bit of confidence to take this trade a little earlier, I'm going to make the overnight VWAP yellow. Uh, the So this is our opening range. There was actually a decent amount of selling that came in right before the open. About 20 minutes before the open, there was some selling here. I normally don't take trades this early, but you can see the spike of volume right before the open. And here's another one, right? This is 9:27, where we know that high volume is going to come in. It's kind of just like they're just getting the party started early, right? I got a ton of orders to sell today, and I can't wait until the market opens. That's kind of what that looks like to me. But when we have this open and the overnight VWAP holds as a resistance as well, this just gives me a lot more confidence in taking this trade, right? This VWAP is already kind of slanted down. We can see the New York VWAP never even tested it, right? It was, pretty much running in parallel the entire time and on the way down. Now, I caught a piece of this move. I probably took it for 20 points. And that was about it. My best trade of the day. Let me see what the execution was. Give me 1 second here. Didn't come until 880. My best trade of the day. Now, I got kind of chopped up in here. I knew I wanted to be short. I think I was trying to be a little too cute with my order executions and was trying to scale it in and out and things like that. And it's just like, no, this is a trend. Just get in the trend and let it work. So my best trade didn't come until here, and I got out of it at 785. 785. All right. So pretty late to this move, but having that higher time frame monthly VWAP that we talked about as a potential target, I was okay holding on to it. And I actually had to get out of my own way with this one. Like I said, I was trying to, trying to take profits, trying to secure profits, and we can see in the beginning of the day, there's a lot of overlap in these 3 minute candles, and we see this a lot, right? After the first hour, the market kind of starts to smooth out, if it's going to pick a direction, and that's ultimately what happened here. Uh, but taking the trade and then just getting out of my way, I actually just went and got a haircut, put in my trailing stop, and trailed it manually, and it never went off. And I'm like, oh wow, market must still be moving down because I haven't gotten a notification that I'm out of this trade yet. Uh, but yeah, really not too much to talk about. I think today was really about that higher time frame puzzle, where we got extended from that anchored VWAP, and then it was just about, hey, where is a potential target for this? Now we're gonna map out a couple of things, and we're doing all of this, I think, so we can prepare for the next move like this. There was a couple of we had some news this month, right? I believe CPI was on the 12th. That's this range here. We had PPI on the 13th, which is this range here. And then we had uh what was on the 7th? There was NFP on the 7th, right? So once we start to sell off this way, and then that monthly VWAP, right? We'll put that back on here as well. Monthly VWAP here, right? So putting this whole puzzle together, we talked a little bit yesterday about, taking a part of the move when it's picture perfect. We'll add on Coach Paul's 200 moving average just as a topper, right? We rejected right there. We had this move yesterday. And I said it yesterday, right? I'm going to catch the next perfect one. I didn't get this whole move, but I had to take a piece of it. This is a perfect puzzle, right? In my mind, we rejected off that 200 moving average, couldn't get above it. The 20 and the 50 are below the 200, which is telling us that, we are This market is starting to sell off. When we talked to Dakota on Wednesday, he was in this short on Wednesday. I said, if the market does want to sell off, there's a ton of room down because of this move, right? We've seen this cross of the 200 moving average with the 20 and the 50 usually lead to a pretty big move. I know there's a lot of drawings on here, but we'll try to hide them so we can see when the last one was, but it's right here, right? When the market crosses below that 200 moving average with the 20 and 50 going with it, this is a 1,000 point move in the Nasdaq. So the potential for this move was there. The market just had to agree with the timing of it. And then again, I'll put the drawings back on. Everything else that we have here are targets, right? So shout out to JD that's in the chat. I think you do a way better job than me at remembering where some of these news candles are. But the first target on this sell side would be, the high of that NFP candle, right? Where, we traded it. We know there's a ton of volume there. That news changes the market. And we can see all of these targets here. So now where we're sitting right now is 50%. I'll take off the drawings again so we can see it a little clearly. But 50% of the CPI candle. Now, why are we looking at this one? It was the biggest range of these news candles that we have. And since we printed it, since we left that, we haven't traded through that price again, right? We made the low and haven't traded it. We're sitting right at 50% of it. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. So now the market has to make a decision about this range, right? Do we stay here? Do we go down and test 21,500, which is right below this range? Or do we, trade back above it to 21,850s? But just a really nice sell-off day today. Today made that CPI candle look weak. Yeah, it definitely did. How can I set up my chart like yours? Take a screenshot of it. I don't have anything really special on here. It's just, I changed the colors, have a volume indicator, ATR, and that's really it. Is there a way to track those big orders anyway, or is it all just mental memory over the week? Hayden, good question. There are platforms that can track them. I use Quantower for all my trades for my personal account, and I have an indicator called Power Trades that kind of marks them out. So I have visual levels there. But outside of that, to me, I'm kind of marking them manually. What I'll do, or if you're watching Topstep TV during the day, the team has been doing a great job of calling out these levels, especially when the orders fill. All you got to do is, hey, you'll hear Andre, and he's been calling him out and killing him this week, and it is really helpful. But if you hear, a order got filled at 22,240 in the Nasdaq, just put a line there, right? Put a line there, maybe put some text, right? And just leave it on there for the week, right? So you can remember it. So you can remember it. Blue Boy, the tape rarely lies. Kind of confusing in the late day. Yeah, the tape rarely lies, but it can be confusing, right? So I learned how to read tape from a stock trading group, and the instructor of that group would say all the time, like people would come in the group and like, oh, let's trade Apple, let's trade Tesla, let's trade Google. And the problem with trading those is, those are some of the biggest names in the world, right, to trade. So as day traders, we're not the only ones involved, right? There are longer term investors in there. They have their own opinions about how the market should go, right? Hedge funds and banks and whatever it is, buying those assets to hold them for a long time. And if you're day trading them, you might be fighting that longer term trend, right? As opposed to reading the book for let's say a random $20 stock that just pops up with a ton of volume that day. He would compare it, right? And saying reading Apple, reading Microsoft is like reading a textbook, but reading that $20 stock that just pops up is like reading a pamphlet, right? So I can notice the volume. Oh, hey, yeah, there's a ton of volume buying in here. Let's try to find out what their intentions are and then just hop on board. Same thing with reading the equities here, right? These are the most popular financial products out there. So trying to read the tape can get a little bit difficult because there's so much size being traded. Can you look at RTH open for today and on the M1? Yeah, let's look at it, right? We talked a little bit about just going regular trading hours on your charts. And here is yesterday's close and today's open, right? Not much of a gap. Not much of a gap, so the market kind of looked above yesterday's close and then just sold off from there. Uh, Billy, I agree with you. One order book makes futures cleaner. I agree. All right. Let's see. Not missing any questions. I don't think so. But let's take a look at the ES real quick. The ES actually looked a lot weaker, if we could say that. Uh, I think when the sell-off is vertical is likely to close during the same day. Close lower? I think so. Uh, yeah, I wish Coach Paul was here because we talk about every time we get a move like this. I like to ask him, when he was trading in the pits, trading on the floor, what this kind of price action meant, and it's liquidation, right? It's selling where the sellers do not care about what price they get; they just have to sell it. Now, they either have to sell it because they're long and they're getting liquidated, or they're long and they're taking profits, right? Whatever it is, they have a ton of volume that they have to get traded out, and uh, they don't try to be perfect about it, right? Some of those thousand lots that we saw get filled. Remember, so this is a really good point, man. I wish Coach Paul was here. We got to talk to him about this on Monday. So we've talked about options expiration, right? Or how options run the futures markets. Today is options expiration day, and all week we've been seeing huge orders try to get filled, and sometimes they left their orders on the books and the market went and got them, and then other times we saw it. I think it was Wednesday on the close. There was that 700 lot that was sitting up above the market in the Nasdaq. They couldn't get a fill, and this was in power hour, and then they just came down and chased the market, right? So really interesting stuff that on options expiration day, we see a liquidation move like this. After all week, we've been seeing some of this bigger size get filled, sometimes chasing price, where it seems like somebody just had a ton of size to fill. Now, I might just be creating a story in my own head, but it sounds like it makes sense. Um, I speak fast. I'm sorry. I'll try and slow down. I'm so tired of having bad trading days on Friday. I just sat out the day so I don't go into the weekend mad. Oh, look. Man, Andrew, I know that feeling, man. I know that feeling. That was me yesterday, right? I looked at yesterday's price action. I said we've been having, you know, daily dojis. I don't want to take a part in this. And as soon as I let my guard down, gave us a pretty nice trade. So today I was just like, I can't miss it. But any other questions on the equities? If not, I will move over to gold, and then we'll talk about crude oil because we missed crude oil yesterday. I got a nice slice, but not all that much of it. Thursday just got annihilated. Was glad to remember something Coach Jay said. Get your hypothesis ready, and if conditions aren't for you, stay out. Yeah, 100%. Right. Have a case for both sides. I think in the equities, the case to the upside was if we get above, the high of that FOMC candle, which was going to be tough because we haven't seen any buying, then I'll buy it. But if we can't and we reject, uh, these markets look very heavy, right? Coach Paul uses that 500-pound trying to lift the weight over your head. That's what these markets were right now. And yeah, they look, it's interesting. Markets have not chosen a direction since this FOMC candle. What do you make of the move up before the sell up? It's just hollow. It was just hollow, right? There wasn't any convinced buying in this move. Uh, right, lower than average. We got extended away from VWAP. It was just price kind of going because markets tend to float up, but there wasn't really any convinced buying because they didn't defend any of these levels. Um, for what reason are your candles blue and orange? I don't like the color red. That's really it. If I could change everything that was red on this platform, I would. I really just don't like the color red. Uh, all right, let's go to gold. So gold now, doesn't this look a lot like that Nasdaq chart with these three daily dojis? Let's see what a monthly VWAP is in gold. Gold is a little bit different because this market has been rallying, right, and has broken out of some of the ranges that we've seen, right? Here's the one candle we were talking about in gold on the daily that was an issue. We got above that. We're starting to trend. Um, but again, what's going on? If buyers like this, right? Should we be seeing these dojis at these highs of a range where whatever this is, we can consider this candle pretty high volume on the daily. Doji's at the high of it. We're not as extended from the monthly VWAP as we were in uh, the Nasdaq and the S&Ps, but kind of a similar pattern, right? Three dojis in a row. Uh, the market is holding here, but if we can't find any buyers above here, and this is a market that's making new all-time highs, so similar to what we saw in Bitcoin, if there are no buyers, we get a pullback. Because if I'm a buyer, if I'm holding on to it, especially if I bought somewhere recently, if the market doesn't give me favorable price action, at some point I might have to sell it. So gold right now is in a bit of a decision-making mode. We can see it with this 200 moving average starting to flatten out a little bit. The market's trying to decide whether or not we can continue higher. Um, I think for this reason right now, I'm kind of staying away from gold. Uh, I've tried to short it a couple times, and every time I do, I'm trying to short it back to this 200 moving average. It just always stops me out before it does. So maybe I should do the Dakota style and set my entry where my stop is. But with this market right now, I'd kind of rather just sit out and wait for it to decide what it's doing. If we look at the last night's open with VWAP, a little tricky. We looked to the upside. Maybe you could have taken this long where it looked like VWAP was going to go, but then we came right back and closed below it. Uh, Again, this is over the past couple of days looking a little difficult to trade, but it's not going to stay that way, right? We've seen gold do this before where it consolidates for maybe a week or two and then continues the trend. Maybe we sell off, but I don't want to sell gold until it starts to hold consistently below this 200 moving average, where it has the potential to right now, but we've seen this before. It consolidates and then continues higher. So just waiting for that next leg up. Alex says, now's the time to sell gold. I want that gap down there at 2,800 in gold. That'd be nice. That'd be a nice move. But maybe a pullback to the 20 moving average on the daily, which is right under 2,900 right now. That's a good possibility where we have this daily candle here that we talked about. We're dealing with the range at the high. By the time we trade on Monday, this 20 moving average should be somewhere near 2,900. A test of that is definitely a possibility. But again, hypothesis for both, right? If we close above 2,960, then I could make the case for 3,000 as well, right? So just have to see what the market decides. We know that there's going to be news that comes out that changes opinions and changes, trajectory of some of these markets. So just making a case for both sides, and it's about a 50-point move each way right now. So should we bet against the market in this situation? I think for me, I don't have an opinion. Anything you hear me talk about here is going to be a hypothesis for both sides, right? And then I'm going to trade whichever one the market decides to go with. Uh, if I trade my opinion and it's wrong, that's usually where I get an ego hit, and I'm like, well, I thought this should happen and it didn't. If I trade my opinion and it's right, I get a day like today in the Nasdaq where I thought, yeah, maybe we could go and test that monthly VWAP if we start to see some selling. We saw the selling, then you get into the trend, right? I got chopped up this week because I had an opinion on a day trade and the market just wasn't ready yet, right? If you're swing trading, it's a little bit easier, but if you're day trading, timing and location matters. And today the timing was right. So have a hypothesis, figure out which one the market is giving to you, or maybe it's neither, and then you take your trades from there. All right. Thoughts on 6B? I can take a look at it. Let's go through the major markets real quick first. Let me go to crude oil because crude did have a pretty nice move today as well. All right, let's take a look at crude. So we missed crude yesterday, but pretty nice move in crude today. kind of started off yesterday, right? Whatever this selling was last night. If we look at these markets, right, overnight, where crude is a 24/7 market. Um, Whatever this big selling was, we couldn't get back above 50% of it and couldn't hold it. And then here's last night's open. I'll make this purple. Uh, yeah, just a really nice sell in crude. Anyone trade crude today? This is a nice move. Right back down to those 70s. Um, I said I'm bullish crude above 70, so I'll see on Monday whether or not it holds if I want to trade crude. Um, but that is a pretty strong move. We closed under the daily 200 moving average, which is right around 70.80 right now. Uh, so interesting. Crude does have some room lower, right? If we want to continue selling, we had this 4 month consolidation last year. The lows of it are near 65, and we're starting to trade into that range, right? So crude does have some potential to sell lower. My upside hypothesis for crude is it likes to hold $70 and trade between 70 and 80. I know some of the fundamental news behind crude right now is bearish, so I have to keep that in mind. Where it's not just a blind buy just because. It's also we see the 20 and 50 moving average below that 200 on the 30-minute chart. So yeah, looks pretty heavy. Um, let's see. Was trying to sell CL yesterday, one losing day this week. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Where you were trying to sell it and you were right, just not yesterday. Right? You were right today, just not yesterday. And that's the key with day trading. And to me, that's why I try to pay attention to flows as much as possible. Because, you know, if I want to sell crude and it's showing that for the day it's buying, is it a better idea for me to just not trade it that day and wait until the market aligns with what my hypothesis is instead of trying to force a position, right? With losing days and things like that, sometimes it's a thought of if I have a hypothesis and the market doesn't agree and I don't place a trade that day, is that better than trying to force something to happen? Right. Sometimes we see traders that share trade reports, on Dakota's slow markets where they have gaps in their trading weeks, right? Where they're not placing trades every day. And I think, is that the trader saying, hey, the markets don't align with my hypothesis, so I don't have to place a trade? That's the one advantage that we have as day traders, right? You don't have to be in the markets. And then you could have a day like today in crude where you sold it, where you conserve some of your mental capital and actual capital, where you sell it on a day like today, and then you're able to take most of that trend, right? So yeah, one thing about day trading, again, timing and location. Where we had that location right, you could have been selling crude yesterday and lost, selling crude at the same exact price today and had the best trade. Uh, so I think flows are really important. Um, All right, we went over gold, the equities, crude oil, and we got a half an hour left. So if there are other markets that you guys want to take a look at, let me know. I am going to pull up the Japanese yen. Uh, Again, shout out to Coach Paul. He has been trading this market, and it's been presenting some really nice opportunities. Right, the Japanese yen right now is above the 200 moving average on the 30-minute chart. If we go out to a daily, we just closed above the 200 moving average on the daily chart, and we can see we don't do that often, right? The last time we've been above this, last time we looked above it was December 3rd, right? So almost 2 months ago. And the last time we closed above it was, I guess we'll count whatever this day is right here, but that's pretty much a close at it, and that was October 8th, right? So the yen has a decision to make right now, right? Is this kind of broke that daily downtrend that we had? So, do we continue this rally, or is this a spot where it rejects? Where if we can see the 20 and the 50 moving average are still lower. So, let's look at it for a day trade. Last night, here is last night's open in the end, and I saw that daily candle is pretty ugly. But decent sell yesterday. Not surprised that where the sell off is happening is at that daily 200 moving average. right? So let's put a white line on the charts so we can take a look at where that is on the 30. All right, so this white line here is the daily 200 moving average. Not surprised to see the market selling off there, right? That's a higher time frame resistance level. So pretty nice sell. Pretty nice sell last night. Got some urgency there where the market did leave that range pretty early. Volume left as well. But in the medium time frame on the daily, we're in an uptrend. So kind of two-sided market here. This is one that's on Coach Paul's scouting report. I'm sure he traded it today. I think it's going to continue to be, right? If you're struggling in the equities right now, this is a market that's moving, presenting some decent opportunities, right? If this was a NASDAQ chart, I would love to trade this if it looked like this. All right. Yeah, this looks really clean. When you any chance we can review stats? Maybe we review stats next week. If we have some time to do it today, maybe I can do one or two. But I want to go through a couple more markets. I know we got 6B on the list, and then if there's anything else that you guys want to review as far as markets go. When you put together your scouting list, do you look for markets at or close to the 200 moving average or other factors? So that's a good point, Paul. I think you can uh, definitely look for markets that are near that 200 moving average. We've seen how frequently that's presented opportunities, right? The Nasdaq, for example, near that 200 moving average. Look at how strong these moves are, right? 250 points down yesterday. It's 500 points down today. Let's just pull up random markets and see. If I was looking at nat gas on this cross of this 200 moving average, look at how strong that move is, right? When it crosses. And this is on the 30-minute. You could look on the daily as well. But yeah, I think that's a good point. Let's go. We had the British, somebody asked about the British pound. Let's see here, right? But I also think it matters is not just the 200 moving average. If the 20 and the 50 aren't showing trend, right, where they're kind of crossing around each other, then maybe, I would ignore this. But let's look at the British pound here. On a daily, it's kind of same as the Japanese yen, pushing up towards that 200 moving average on the daily, which is a flat line. And so when you guys are bringing up these markets, hopefully you guys are trading these because these markets are presenting some really good opportunities. Here's the sell last night, 30-minute opening range, and we can apply the same technical analysis that we do anywhere else, right? Where you don't have to be trading the equities. This is a really nice sell, right? Really nice sell. Let's see, coming back down towards that 200 moving average. It's been presenting buy opportunities. But again, the market has to, in the day time frame, say that yes, we're bouncing off of here and showing that, right? I wouldn't be surprised if we see some consolidation around this 200 moving average for a little while. Just off of a technical, right? I know nothing fundamentally about British pound, but from a technical perspective, I wouldn't be surprised at some consolidation. If this starts to close and this 20 and this 50 moving average start to trade below it, right, and really start to trend below, I'd be looking for sells because, again, this is a market that's in a downtrend. Could this be, just kind of a short covering rally that we're seeing before some more continuation to the downside? Uh, all right, a lot of comments here. Let me just make sure we get through everything. Could you explain to people what usually the best quarter to trade if you're doing swing trading? Uh, I'd say the first 2 quarters of the year, personally, for me. For swing trading, where the summer gets a little quiet, and the end of the year, I'd probably say Q1, Q2, Q3 would be last, and then Q4 is probably in third place. Uh, in third place because it's probably going to be still kind of slow, but we might get rallies into the end of the year and things like that. But also this year, it's kind of hard because you're like, okay, what are you swing trading this year with a change of administration going into 2024? That's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that. I would be curious to ask Coach Paul, who does a lot more swing trading than me, what his best quarters are. What is the J trade? All right, we'll talk about that. What is the J trade? I think we're done going through markets. Let's bring up. I saw RBOB in there. Ugh, this looks ugly. Uh, to me, personally. On the daily, it's in a trend. Sorry, it's in a range. The 20, 50, and 200 moving average are kind of wrapped around each other. Uh, does that mean that there's not opportunities here? There definitely are. But when we look at, if I look at this 30-minute chart and this 200 moving average, this looks like a wooden roller coaster that's missing a wheel, right? Where it's very choppy to me, right? For my trading style, we did get a nice break today and a push away from that 200 moving average. So does this start to trend? It might, right? This might be the beginning of a trend, which is nice because we might be early to the move here if this continues downward. But I don't want to see, right? I want to see the lows of this range right here. I want to see this hold as a resistance so we can continue lower because then there is some space lower. But for the last 10 days or so, if not even longer, right? For the last month or so, it's been kind of in this range, right? So decent trade last night, it looks like. Here's that 30-minute opening range from last night. It's a nice trade today. But see a market like this, I don't know that I would be looking for an opportunity here prior to, right? When we do that scouting report, right? Coach Paul puts together his scouting report, or he tells us what he's looking at, because on a higher time frame chart, it looks like it has the opportunity to present a trade today. If I looked at RBOB yesterday, there's no way that I had an idea that this move had the potential to happen. Right now, if someone puts in the YouTube chat was like, "Hey, RBOB's breaking out," then I might just trade the momentum. But before today, I don't see that. Now today, I see okay, maybe potential for this trend to continue lower. So I'll watch it for Monday. Um, yeah, this is not definitely not the market that I would be trading if I was trying to break a slump. Uh, this would take all my money. Uh, Shout out to Claire in the chat. What's going on, Claire? I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. Thank you for joining us, Claire. All right. All right, so J trade. J trade. Let's talk about it. Look at corn. Okay. See, now this is something where it's like this might be presenting an opportunity here where we talked about corn. Uh Coach Paul, this was on Coach Paul's scouting report going into 2025. It's been a trend the whole year so far. We've come up to some higher time frame levels of potential resistance here, and we're starting to reject off of it. So now, the way corn has been selling off pretty much all of last year, going back to 2023, is this an area that the market turns around now? This looks interesting, right? Because now this looks a lot like that NASDAQ chart. We got heavy at the highs. We're under that 200 moving average now. The 20 and the 50 are going. This would be something I'm paying attention to, right? Now, it's corn. I don't know how many traders we have that trade corn, but if you look at the opening range breakout trades, the equities were clean today, but this might have been cleaner, right? This is a really nice move here. All right, and now let's talk about that J trade a little bit. I know in the equities, I know for me, I was looking for one all day, and yeah, Westy, right? Nice short off that VWAP in corn for sure. So we talked about what the J trade is, and simple definition, it's buyer or seller exhaustion, and how we're defining that. If it's seller exhaustion, we're seeing high volume at what is potentially the low of a move, right? So this right here, this is what I'm calling seller exhaustion. We don't actually see what the delta is, and delta is the difference between buyers and sellers, right? How much volume is traded, aggressive buyers and sellers. We don't see it, but we see pretty high volume at what ends up being the low of a move, and then we see a reversal of it. Now, Paul, I heard you on Topstep TV a little bit, and the second part of that is the next candle lower volume. It doesn't necessarily have to be, right? It could be we could have a ton of buying just step in right away and have equal volume, and then the market just go the other way, right? But really, what we're looking for is this volume exhaustion, right, where it's pretty high volume, this isn't sustainable. And then if we're waiting for confirmation, we're waiting for the market to close above the high of where that high volume came in, right? So it's going to look different on any time frame that you use. For me, I use a 3-minute chart just because it helps kind of be patient a little bit. But once we get this close above here, and we talked about this when this was from yesterday, it's about where your trade location is. Ideally for me, I'm going to get in somewhere, if I'm looking for a long here, getting in long at the high of this candle. I would love to get long at 50% of it. And my risk is going to be making a new low on this candle. Now, today I was looking for one and it never gave us one, right? So we talked earlier in the week about preempting this move, right? Where this one was clearly at the low of the move, right? Once we got that reversal. But yesterday I could have chosen this candle and said, yeah, this is potential for a J trade, right? We have higher volume than the open. So I want to buy it. And I've told you guys that I preempt this move sometimes, but it's accepting lower probability that it's going to work, right? We get high volume here. And what does that VWAP do? It immediately acts as a resistance and we get follow through volume, right? We get continued selling and the market pushes lower. So if I buy this trying to preempt the move, right, I'm accepting lower probability. And that's why I have to have a stop defined. Because if I don't, then we get a continued sell off. Now, the thing is here, right, when we're looking for that J trade, we're looking for a reversal, right? We're looking for a reversal, but some days the markets don't reverse. And the other side of that trade is a continuation. Give me 1 second, actually. So I had, if you guys want to build your trading playbook, you can have a conversation with Chat GPT and tell it what you're looking for and try to break down the trades that you look for in in however many steps. So I had a conversation with Chat GPT, talked about all the stuff that I'm looking for as far as volume and all that stuff goes, and we broke it down to 8 trading setups. The trend continuation is a setup, right? So we have this high volume, and again, sometimes the markets don't reverse. Right. On a day like today, the markets did not reverse. So what are these high volume candles showing us? These are our entries to join the trend, right? Because if we think about it, if that whole puzzle we put together for the Nasdaq, right, where it has on a higher time frame a potential to sell off, a sell off is going to look exactly like this, right? So if we're not getting a close above these higher volume candles, what does that mean? That any buying that we see here is bullshit buying, right? They're not actually buying to close over the. So I do include the wicks on all these candles, right? Price traded there. I include the wicks, and here's why I include the wicks, because if this was a 4-minute candle instead of a 3-minute candle, right, the market still traded to a price, but it might look a little bit different. So I'm going to include whenever that volume came in, whatever price it decided to trade to, because what I don't see in this candle, right, this is high volume right here. This is 14,000 contracts. What if 10,000 of those contracts traded at this low and the rest of the 4,000 traded through the rest of that candle, right? I don't know. So I'm going to include the whole wick because I can't, at least on this platform, I can't see. If you're using footprint charts and things like that, then you can see it. I personally don't use footprints because they get a little noisy, but I'm going to include the whole candle, right? But in this case, we get these bounces. The market's not trading above it. This is my opportunity to short. All right, here we go. Another high volume, right? So if we're looking for reversals, it has to make sense in that overall picture of the market. And I will say that at the lows of the move today, here's the puzzle that goes through my head. We had selling all day, right? We sold off 600 points. If there are short sellers that are day traders, they have to take profits at some point, right? This is just a hypothesis I'm putting together. So if at a low I see exhaustive selling that the market then closes above, then I'll go long, right? And it made sense for that to happen in my puzzle at the last hour of the day because day traders need to close positions. It never happened, so I can't take that trade, right? But all of this high volume here, when the market doesn't trade above it, or sorry, when the market doesn't close above this and that VWAP is still low, these are your sell opportunities, right? I'm selling bounces. Now, I told you guys before, and some of the, that hang out in the Coach J chat, the counter trend moves, right? Measuring out counter trend moves, counter trend 50 points, and then the market sells off. Then we get another high volume move here. counter trend about 50 points, and then the market continues to sell off, right? So sometimes you are going to get continuation volume, and what I don't want anyone to do is miss out on this entire move looking for a reversal that's never going to happen. Some days we get trends, right? And when you get those trends, these opportunities here, maybe you take this long, but this long is an opportunity for a sell, right? Hopefully that makes sense, right? So high volume here, we never close above it. We hold that VWAP from this last high volume. I'm selling. I'm selling here, right? And it happened all day, right? Every time we kind of got to one of these highs, this is like middle of the day, kind of low volume float area. But outside of that, every time we got to one of these high volume candles, we traded to the high. That's my sell opportunity. And I don't, and the reason I'm calling these my sell opportunities for, you guys probably heard me say this, that I don't want to swim in front of the shark, right? If we're saying the shark is the seller today, where they created the trend, sell, I don't want to swim in front of the shark. I don't want to sell in the hole, right? So if this is where the market decides to bounce, I don't want to sell at this low because of the potential of this pull up. But if we get 50 points, I know that there's a seller down here that's, if I sell here, there's a seller down here that's in a worse position than me. Worst case scenario, I can sell up here and make money to their position. Best case scenario, I sell up here and they continue to sell and I make money with them, right? So that's what happened today. Every one of these big sell opportunities was an opportunity for a pull up about 50 points and then a continued sell off. Same thing here, right? This one was a little bit different. This one might have caught you in a false breakout or not even a false breakout, right? This is the first one that actually we got to close above. Maybe you take this long, you get 40 points, but remember you're in a counter trend move. So if I'm taking a reversal in a counter trend move, I could want it to go all the way back up here, but the market doesn't. It's a sell-off. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. But what the J trade would be, what we've been calling it, and I think if I look at my playbook, there's probably 8 J trades, right? 8 different ones. But the reversal trade is the market has to close above that high volume and then confirm a reversal. And we never got that today. All right. No ignition volume after the exhaustion volume. Yeah, right. Yeah. And really, if we look at this, was there ever exhaustion volume today? Or was it just consistent? His royal, yeah, you're right. He said, no other job like this in the world. Millions watching the same chart and all trading it different ways and all trading colored blocks on the screen. Yeah, it's crazy. That's why I said yesterday, right? Like when we get really upset about what's going on, if you just do like this in your chair and zoom out, it's just like I've been tunnel visioned on lines moving up and down a chart to make money, right? And it, you know, it, it puts things in perspective. Am I in the Illuminati? Not that I know of. Not that I know of. And yet, Paul, that's fine. So the difference is, and that's why we're here to explain this, right? We see today, let's just look at the volume today. Consistent. I would call this consistent, right? We of course we get this midday lull, but that happens every day. But this volume is consistently at the average and selling. Yesterday, we got really high volume, and then for the rest of the day, we saw nothing like this, and this is an anomaly compared to the open. Today, we never got that anomaly, right? The open was the highest volume, and everything else was just consistent selling. This is probably the closest thing to an anomaly, but this was just consistency. All right. How can we gauge the strength of any move only using time and sales if I don't have data subs? So you don't need time and sales. Sorry, you don't need a data sub for time and sales. The strength of a move you can tell with the pace of time and sales. You know, if you have your time and sales unfiltered, it'll show you kind of like a heartbeat of the market, right? So if you have it unfiltered in the Nasdaq, it's going to look insane, and on the ES too, because ES trades a lot of size. But if that is consistently flowing, then can, say that the move has a little bit more strength. If it's choppy, right? If it's a heartbeat that looks inconsistent, then the move is probably inconsistent as well. If you're only using time and sales, I would say in trading futures, it's kind of hard to just use time and sales. Um, it's a little bit easier in reading stocks, um, because there's always a trade. And if you're filtering time and sales, right, I could randomly put a trade on of a 5 lot here, and it's going to show up on your time and sales. If I'm trading a 5 lot here and you're trying to read what I'm doing with that time and sales, you're going to be confused because I'm confused. Why the hell am I putting a 5 lot on here when the market's not even doing anything? Uh, let's see what else we got here in the chat. Discord just disappeared somehow. I don't know what just happened there, but I kept thinking it would bounce and I just kept getting clapped. Yeah, so that's the thing, right? We can have an idea, right? And we got to think about it. Why do I want this to bounce? There's a couple of different ways. I know for myself, if I've and this has happened in the past, if I miss this short, I'm just like, damn it, I missed a short. I gotta buy it. I gotta buy it. I gotta find the first place to buy it because there's no way I missed this short. And some days that's gonna work, but some days when the flow is this heavy to the downside, it's about finding the part of the trend. Like I said, my best trade of the day didn't happen until 21,880. Now you have to have a hypothesis for how the market can go lower. And again, I was only looking for 50 points here because at this time when I took this short, the monthly VWAP was only 50 points below. I was looking for 50. When the market gave me some favorable price action, like I said, I did, I put on the trade. I got some favorable price action here. I set my trailing stop right above this high. It never got hit, and I went and got a haircut. Like the market is either going to continue selling off or it's going to stop me out. I'm going to take my profits. I'll take my 40 points or whatever it is at this high, and I'm good with it. And I was very late to this move, but zooming out a little bit, seeing the potential for where the market can go, right? And that's it, right? We can try to guess that it's going to bounce, but it's yeah, I mean, every 30-minute candle today was red, with the exception of the one blue one that was a doji. Uh, break and retest of the lows for the 880. Why exactly did I get in at 880? Give me 1 second. So it wasn't a break and retest of the low. 1236. 1236. So exactly what we just talked about, right? These high volume candles giving us an opportunity to sell. It was this one. This high volume here. If I'm looking at Quantower power trades, and you don't need power trades, but there was big volume from 889 up to 897. Right below that 21,900. So when the market bounced up to 21,900 right here and couldn't get above it, I don't need to sell right here, but this showed rejection of this high volume. We're still under VWAP. This VWAP's hanging out at the low. Then I get short here, kind of late, but my stop is going to go right above it and then just trail down. Right? Another high volume one that we couldn't get above, and it's been doing it all day. I'm going to try to jump on the trend until it proves me wrong. What size do you use for your trades? In my personal account, I'm trading anywhere from 2 to 5 lots. This was a 2 lot. If I was up here with the sell, I probably would have been in a little bit more, but 2 to 5. Minis. I work all day, so it doesn't help. I'm not paying attention. I got funded the week I took off of work and just traded. Just another impediment to overcome is one pays the bills. These days are definitely JD, that's a great point. These days don't happen often, right? And that's why I don't know if you guys could tell, but yesterday I was a little bit frustrated because I thought this was the big move. These days probably happen once a month, and if most days where we get reversals and things like that, your strategy works. This is where it's important to have principles and say, hey, if the market doesn't agree with my trade ideas, I'm not going to lose my whole account, right? Because this was one day like this, excuse me, this entire month. Every other day has not been like this for the most part, right? So don't lose everything on this one day and have to restart, have to start over your XFAs or your combines just because of one day that the market doesn't agree with you. Because Monday it might agree with you again, right? So just take your losses, measure them out before you decide it, right? Decide that today, and then it's easier to digest if the market doesn't agree. In blue whale, yeah, 2 to 5 minis. Um, all right, I think that's it. I don't know that I have any other questions. Like I said, Discord just shut down. Uh, so I don't think Andrew sent me anything else. Uh, but I think that's it. Do I have rules for how many trades you take? Not necessarily. Like if you saw Dakota trade this morning, I really loved the way Dakota was trading. He was buying it, and everyone's like, "Oh, Dakota's on tilt." That's exactly what my trade executions look like. Uh, if I here, let me see if I can show you this real quick. They're going to look crazy, I promise you. But we are trying to trade momentum, and I would much rather take a scratch than to hold on to a position that's not working. So Dakota, he was in a 5 lot, and he's just like, 10 points in the profit, and then it comes back and he's out. Then he's in a 5 lot again, 10 points in the profit, comes back, he's out. So it looks like he's on tilt, but he timing and location, right? He has the location right, but his timing might be a little bit off. Maybe you could say we could zoom out and trade it that way, but you know, it's a timing thing. So I don't have a limit on how many trades that I'll take. If I look at my personal account, there's 24 executions today of one trade idea, right? It's one trade idea, 24 executions where I'm scaling in and out. I'm buying it, I'm selling it, I'm buying it, I'm selling it, and waiting for that market to give me that flow because I knew it was coming. I was just like, my timing feels a little bit off. So I'm scaling in and out of it. But what I will say is I'm not going to lose X amount of dollars on the day, however that happens. Um, can you please share how you use the ATR to put a stop loss? Look at the ATR value, multiply it by 2. That's your stop. Yep, big blue boy. One idea, multiple tries. So when traders ask me how many trades do you take on a day, one trade, one trade idea. It was short. How do you execute that trade idea? Right. It's like a football team that says, I want to run a spread offense. So that's my offense. Multiple executions of that spread offense, and I look at it the same way. All right, but I think that's it. It's Friday. I want to thank everybody for joining. If you have any other questions, bring them back on Monday. We're here. We talk about the same stuff all the time. But enjoy your weekends. Go do something fun. If you have to review your trades for the week, take an hour sometime this weekend to do it. Just kind of look over what you did well, what you did wrong, review what you did well as well. I think a lot of times we can beat ourselves up about the stuff that didn't go right. Uh, Focus on the stuff that you do well, right? So you can have the confidence to do it again when it shows up, and then do something off the charts, have some fun. We work really hard at this, and a lot of times for the freedom to have that fun. So take advantage of it. And I will talk to you all on Monday. And if, like Paul just said, if you didn't hit that like button already, do it now. Tips for anyone? Okay, I answer that one before we go. Tips for those who just passed their XFA today: take it slow. Congratulations, first of all, on passing your XFA. When you activate it, take it slow. Don't do anything. As long as you passed it sustainably, right? If you didn't put on 15 lots and just pass it in 2 days, don't do anything different, right? And take the same trade setups that got you to this point. And I've said this before, Ronan, but don't treat it like a kid with a new toy on Christmas and stay up all night, you know, trading your new XFA because you got it, right? Go through the same process. I would almost say, if you trade only the New York session, activate the XFA an hour before that, right? So you're not tempted to trade it as soon as that nighttime opens. And manage your risk, right? Accept how much you're going to lose today, so you can already accept it tomorrow. But thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll talk to you all on Monday. Coach Paul will be back. Oh, Dolby is actually going to be on the stream with us next week. I think for the first 3 days of the week. So look out for Dolby on At the Buzzer. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.